It was 1932, and Hugo Boss had to make the ultimate decision: go into bankruptcy with his small tailor shop, or take a deal with the devil and join the Nazi Party in order to save his company. This is the bloody history of the fashion icon Hugo Boss, who birthed a legacy in the darkest of times. But before we delve into this dark history, guess how much Hugo Boss profited from the Nazis? 5,000? 15,000? 50,000? Tell us your guess in the comments section. Alright, now let's find out. Humble Hugo. Born on the 8th of July 1885 in the textile town of Metzingen, Hugo Ferdinand Boss found himself deeply drawn to the fashion industry. His parents owned a modest lingerie shop in this city, and he would often work at the store learning about the industry. As he grew older, his love for fashion only intensified. He was determined to learn everything there was to know about the industry and become a fashion icon, so he took on jobs at clothing stores and even worked as a merchant apprentice. But fate had other plans for him. In Germany at the time, every young German male was required to serve their country by enrolling in military service, and Hugo was no exception. He spent 2 years in the military, and when he returned home in 1905, he decided to work in a textile mill to learn how to weave fabrics. Eventually, as the only surviving son, Hugo took over his parents' lingerie shop, but his dreams went on hold again when World War I broke out and he was mobilized to serve his country. During his time on the battlefield, Hugo couldn't help but notice how the soldiers' clothes were made from inferior materials. Realizing he could make better uniforms, he started nurturing the vision of creating his own fashion company. With his newfound vision, Hugo remained determined to fight and survive the war to make his dreams come true. Luckily for him, his grit and determination paid off, and he returned home alive. On returning home, Hugo decided to continue running his parents' shop to gain more knowledge before eventually opening his own company. And in 1923, he poured all his ideas and passions into opening his clothing shop. The following year, he opened a factory that produced shirts, jackets, raincoats, workwear, and sportswear. And with his impressive skills as a salesman and the high quality of his clothing, it didn't take long before Hugo's shop gained local recognition in Germany. However, his happiness was short-lived as something unexpected was about to happen. A German journey. After World War I, Germany was in turmoil as the Treaty of Versailles imposed a harsh penalty on Germany, forcing them to pay the winning countries a staggering amount of 132 billion gold marks in reparations. In today's currency, that's approximately $270 billion. This severely impacted the country's economy, leading to many businesses shutting down, including Hugo Boss's clothing shop. Hugo, a man with a vision to be a fashion icon, saw his dreams shatter as he struggled to make ends meet. As the economic situation worsened, Hugo was forced to lay off his workers and shut down his factory. His only clients were police and government officials, but it wasn't enough to keep the business afloat. So Hugo had no other choice but to sell off his sewing equipment, leaving him with only 6 sewing machines. As the days went by, Hugo realized that his dreams might never come true as the economic effect was hitting him so hard, causing him to eventually file for bankruptcy. But he never gave up on his dreams. He would go on to look for ways to rebuild his business. A second chance. Once a successful tailor in Germany, Hugo found himself in unrest after his business went under. But little did he know, fate had something grand in store for him. During that period, Germany desperately needed an economic savior. And that's when Adolf Hitler came to power. As controversial as it may sound, Hugo saw this as an opportunity to revive his business and was determined to make it happen. So Hugo had a plan in mind that would make him the official supplier of uniforms and clothing for the Nazi Party. His plan was simple: join the Nazi Party and make high-ranking friends. And his plan worked like a charm, as he was awarded the government contract to make Nazi uniforms. As time passed and his business boomed, he became the primary manufacturer of the Nazi uniform. Being a true strategist, he took advantage of every opportunity that came his way. He donated monthly to the Nazi paramilitary wing and even joined several socialist organizations, which brought about a tremendous increase in his sales. from $95,650 in 1932 to over $8,250,000 in 1941. That's an 8,625% increase in revenue in just 9 years. As a result of his early Nazi Party membership, financial support of the SS, and business impact in the Nazi uniform, Hugo Boss was considered an activist and a strong supporter and beneficiary of Nazi socialism. When World War II approached, the company's main objective shifted to manufacturing outfits for the German armed forces. To meet the growing demand, Hugo had to take out loans to expand his company and create all the uniforms and outfits the Nazis needed. Bloody Hugo. Like many German businesses during the war, Hugo Boss relied heavily on slave labor to keep his operations going. He employed 140 forced laborers, mostly women, and 40 French prisoners of war. While it's true that he allowed these laborers to eat at the canteen instead of the work camps, he didn't care much for their living conditions. Reports surfaced that forced laborers lived in extremely poor conditions, and if they fell behind on their work, Hugo would threaten to send them to boot camps. But hey, hope you're enjoying this video. If yes, then don't forget to hit the like button so that we wouldn't be sent to boot camp by our boss. Alright then, let's continue the story. Despite his dark and obsessive practices, there was one area where Hugo Boss showed a hint of humanity: the feeding of the forced laborers. He was strict about their feeding and ensured they always had enough food to eat. But it was also revealed that he wasn't just involved with the Nazi Party because of the contracts to produce the Nazi uniform. He was a follower of National Socialism and genuinely supported the Nazi movements. He even hung a photograph of himself and Adolf Hitler in his apartment. But after the war ended and the Nazis were defeated, Hugo Boss was investigated. In 1946, the court determined that he was an activist and financial beneficiary of the Nazi Party, which led to him being banned from running a business, stripped of his voting rights, and also fined $100,000. However, he appealed his judgment, causing him to be viewed as a follower rather than an active promoter of National Socialism, thus receiving lesser punishment. Years later, his son, Siegfried Boss, would defend his father's involvement with the Nazi Party in an interview with the Austrian news outlet Profil, saying, "Of course my father belonged to the Nazi Party, but who didn't belong back then? The whole industry worked for the Nazi army." In 1948, Hugo Boss passed away from a tooth abscess. However, despite the dark and disturbing past of Hugo Boss, his death would bring about a new beginning for the company, and he left behind the company's management to his son-in-law, Eugen Holy. The Rebirth. After his death, Eugen Holy, Hugo Boss's son-in-law, took over the ownership and management of the company. With his innovative strategies, he transformed the struggling company by supplying work uniforms for the police and postal workers and laying the foundation for the brand. But the company's status changed when it received its first order for men's suits in 1950. Eugen ensured the suits were elegant and made with very high-quality materials. Although this was expensive, the decision to make high-profile suits paid off because Hugo Boss became a true German fashion tailor and became a popular brand for men in Germany. This resulted in an expansion to 150 employees by the end of the year. By 1960, the company was producing ready-made suits. After laying down the framework for a new beginning, yet again, in 1969, Eugen retired, leaving the company to his sons Johann and Uwe. With their leadership and keen interest, Hugo Boss was reborn, making elegant and high-quality expensive clothing. Soon afterward, it became a fashion brand recognized by elite men in Germany. The brothers set out to expand globally, adding stylish men's suits and sportswear to their catalog and revolutionizing the company from a workwear fashion manufacturer to a global luxury brand synonymous with style and sophistication. They knew they needed to invest heavily in marketing to become a world-recognized brand, so the company started placing ads on race cars in the United States, driven by the era's greatest drivers. This immediately helped them become more recognizable outside Germany. With this expansion, Hugo Boss became the first German exclusive men's luxury brand and dominated the men's fashion market in the US, gaining worldwide recognition. But just as things were financially improving for the company, they suffered another setback. During the 1980s, global economic instability caused high-end fashion to become less desirable. This affected Hugo Boss drastically, and to salvage the situation, they sold sportswear, casual clothing, underwear, and accessories like sunglasses. Fortunately, the economy regained stability, and Hugo Boss was back in business, entering more global markets and cementing its mark in the men's fashion industry. That's when they started laying eyes on celebrities. The brand paid big money to get endorsement deals from some of the biggest stars of the time. For example, they got Sylvester Stallone to model their suits and wear other Hugo Boss clothes even in movies such as Rocky. Effectively, he became the poster boy for the Boss brand. In 1989, the company was sold to a Japanese group, who later sold 77.5% of its shares to the Italian fashion group Marzotto in 1991, ending the reign of family ownership in the company. Nevertheless, Hugo Boss is one of the world's most luxurious fashion brands today, with over 6,100 stores and 124 companies and a market cap of roughly $4.5 billion. Changing its status from a small German clothing shop to a dominant leader in the fashion industry with a reputation for sophistication and style, and having celebrities like Sylvester Stallone or more recently Chris Hemsworth proudly modeling the latest Hugo Boss designs was no easy feat. To right its past wrongs, in 1999, the company established a fund to repay slave laborers for their traumatic experiences working for the company after being criticized and sued by the U.S. lawyers acting on behalf of Holocaust survivors. And in 2011, Hugo Boss publicly apologized for the first time for its use of slave labor. Also, it became a proud supporter of charity, focusing on education and development in developing regions, hoping that its legacy will be remembered for its fashion and free of its dark history. But the question remains, can it ever be free of its dark history? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. That's all for today. We hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more intriguing content just like this. And until we come your way again, bye!